How are we all doing? I need a fan. I think I need a fan.
Can we start with that juicy beat? Can you play the juicy beat one more time?
Just the drums at the top.
Like what? Why? What made you? Stop! I don't want to throw this off, but I really got questions for this guy right here for real. What made you make them sounds like this?
I didn't really know it was going to be that successful. And the sounds were just the sounds that we thought were popular at the time. But it's interesting, Jermaine, we were just talking backstage. The sounds are sounds, and we put judgments on them. We call them, some sounds good, we call some sounds bad. But I would assert that the reason that people think the MPC sounds sound good is because of the work of these people, the artists, who created music with them. And so people, then they hear these sounds and they say, oh, that sounds good. Well, I think they're thinking of the songs that you've all created. And it reminds them of a good feeling they had because of the quality of the music. And so I think it's largely the artists who use the machines that created the good sounds and not so much anything I did. I mean, I made the best sounds I could, but but they were...
Thank you.
You know?
So let's start at the beginning. Like, you know, when you started the drum machine, like, what was going on in the marketplace that made you design the Linn?
Well, there were drum machines, and I would argue that the person that made the biggest advancement in drum machines was Akitaro Kakahashi, the founder of Roland, who first made the A-Stone drum machine, and then so many great drum machines. And it's interesting, a lot of people say to me, I invented the drum machine. Well, I didn't. It existed for a long time before. I just added a few things that made it better, including the sampled sounds and a better system of programming, perhaps. There were drum machines that had fixed beats. And one was rock 1, boom, boom, boom. One was rock 2, boom, boom. But there wasn't much more than that. But it was, so programmability was, when you think it was kind of obvious. If people bought a drum machine, they knew that the drum beats weren't very good, they wanted to make their own. But I think it was, this is a quick anecdote. I first made a prototype of a drum machine on a computer, and it had a screen for programming. And I went down to Stevie Wonder to show it to him. And obviously he's a sightless person. And I saw, this makes no sense. It's a visual instrument for people who play music. Why do they have to go through this mental translation layer to play music? They can tap it out just fine. So that's when I came up with a real-time programming system and created quantization and swing that really helped in those efforts. But still, you could play it in real time, and it was largely because of that experience of seeing Stevie Wonder.
Hold on. Could we just acknowledge the fact that he said, yeah, I came up with a system that was quantization and swing. Something that we take for granted every day in our DAWs and our drum machines. That came out of his brain.
Thank you.
So Jimmy, when you started to use like LinnDrum, when did that kind of really start to become like a whole kind of figure around your sound? Like, did you hear it on someone else's record, or did that just, you know, you started hearing these sounds on other people's records? How did you discover the drum machine?
Well, and to make the distinction, the LM1
Thank you, sir.
was Prince, because all of those early Prince records were all LM1 records. So that's how we were familiar with the idea of. And then when the newer version came out, which was the LinnDrum, the thing we loved about it so much was, first of all, I was a drummer. So the idea of a drum machine and making beats was very natural to me. And but I love the fact that you could switch the sound, the little, whatever they're called, chips or whatever. You could change them to make different sounds. And probably the first album that we used it on extensively was Janet's Control album. And pretty much every beat on that album is all LinnDrum. It's just that we're changing the chips to make the sounds sound different. And it was obviously revolutionary in the way that that record was able to be made, because of the sounds and the machine that he invented.
Justin, when did you pick up an LM1?
All right, so I had to fake it till I made it until I can afford it, because I'm probably the youngest guy on here on the panel, right? So a lot of I cut my teeth on a lot of research and just going back and just figuring out what was what. I probably got, to be honest, I've had LinnDrum since I was nearly a kid. I didn't get my LM1 until like 2 years ago. And I just so happened to get like the best one, not knowing that it was the best one, because there was the Rev 1, and then there's the Rev 2, but the Rev 1.5 still has the engraved buttons, has all the clock sync options, but still, it has the best of the Rev 1 and the Rev 2. I didn't know that. I just found a dude on Reverb, and he was letting it go for a decent price, and I was like, all right, I can afford that. I won't have to eat ramen for too long. So I got it, and then I sent it to a friend of mine, and I sent the picture to a friend of mine, and he's like, yo, turn that around. And I'm like, why? All right, sent him a picture of the back. He's like, you had the rarest revision of the LM1 to exist. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. I had to jump on Google and figure that out after the fact. So, like that said, I've been a student of Roger's pretty much since the beginning of my career. My first professional machine ever was a ASR 10, because that's what RZA used, and it was 1993. And then shortly after that, I got an internship when I was like 15, 16 at the Cutting Room Studios in Manhattan. And I got to watch all these guys coming in and out, and they're all using MPC 3000s, 60s, and whatnot. I'm like, all right, I guess that's what I need to use. And I just happened to find a 60 that was signed by this guy. I didn't even really know. I was like, all right, somebody signed it. All right, cool. It wasn't until years later that I realized what I had in my hands.
Amazing. So, Brian, Jermaine, did you ever experience using the LM1, LinnDrum?
Never. Recently, yes. But my first drum machine was an MPC 3000. It was my first time ever using an actual drum machine. But as of in recent years, like No ID, who we're all friends of, he has a studio up the way in LA that's all this vintage gear. And I remember I went to book some time there, and I was like, yo, bring me the LM1, bring me all it, bring me everything. And I just need a day to get, to learn it. And so, yeah, I did that. I just recently, I've been able to put my hands on one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I was too young. But I remember going to the studio and seeing it. They used to have like an emulator and a LinnDrum. And it's like, you can't afford this shit. Like that's what it was. Like, these two pieces, you can't afford. It seemed like it was like $50,000 too back then. It just seemed like it was so far away. But I remember looking at the LinnDrum, and I remember seeing them pull the chips out and all of this. I didn't know what was going on, but I remember it.
How old were you at that time?
I probably was 13. And it's just like, I just remember, I remember the emulator, because I used to try to tell them to sample stuff, and they didn't do it the way I wanted to. That's what forced me to want to be a producer. It was like, but the emulator used to be like this you could sample in this, right? And that's why I remember when I used to go to the studio.
Wow. So Jimmy, like obviously your collection of records, did you have any kind of like certain production tips of how you was processing the LinnDrum sounds?
No, I mean, to me, it was just what we did back in that day was everything we recorded was the analog tape. And the thing I would do, or we would do, myself and Terry, we would record everything really way too loud on the tape. And we always used to love the way it sounded when you just took those sounds and just smashed them. And we recorded the Control album. We were the engineers on the Control album. We recorded everything way too loud. And that was a lesson from Prince, because Prince would always record with everything in the red. We later on learned that our machines were set up different, and we shouldn't have been doing that. It was a mistake. But when you listen to the Control record, the reason it jumped out at you on the radio was because of the little distortion that was in there, and that was something that Prince taught us. He said, always put a little bit of distortion because it makes it sound louder to people. So that was definitely a technique we used. But it was so easy to get around the LinnDrum. The other thing I liked about it was because it had pads, I would make a loop sometimes, but then I do like my own fills and my own stuff just freehand. And that way everything had a live feel to it. You know, when something would happen once in a song but not again, that kind of thing was really important. So the spontaneity of being able to work like that was I love that.
Can I hijack for 1 second? I didn't mean to turn you on. The fills on that, were those played live, or was that through the?
Didn't mean to turn. No, I mean it was programmed. Yeah, no, we programmed it, but I mean I played it like live, and then it was.
That's what I'm saying. Like you played that live.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I played everything live, but but once again, I started off as a drummer, so that was so for me it was very natural to do that. I never thought of things like because it wasn't about seeing the music at that point; it was just kind of hearing it. So for me, I was always, you know.
The reason I ask is that was the first time, even as a literal kid, I was probably like 4, but that I heard something that I could tell wasn't a live actual musician, but felt like one, and got me curious as to how that happened.
No, that was definitely part of the technique. But that was a great thing about drum machines because, you know, we talked about, you know, quantize. You could quantize stuff, but you could also not do it. And so you could make it keep that live feel. And that for us was important because we always wanted our records to sound like a performance, meaning that it was happening in the spur of the moment. And that was really important to be able to do that.
Amazing. So, Roger, what was the evolution from the LinnDrum over to the MPC? You know, what happened in that period? You know, what went through your mind to design the next evolution of that drum machine and then kind of take it into the world of like sampling with Akai?
Well, in my first company, I had the LM1 first, and then the LinnDrum, and then there was a drum machine called the Linn 9000, and that had its merits. But it's when I thought I had to be a businessman and hire other people to do the design, and it didn't turn out quite as good as I had thought. I thought I had some good ideas in that, but it was too expensive and it was unreliable, and there was problems with that. And eventually that's what brought the company down, together with my horrible business management skills. I was never good at that. I hated the idea of having a company and thinking about all that stuff. But anyway, fortunately, after my company went out of business, the first company, a fellow named Stephen Payne, who had a store in London called Psycho Systems, SYCO, he called me and he said, you know, I've been talking to these people from the Akai audio products company, and they want to create a new division that makes electronic music instruments. And so they want to talk to you. And it turned out it was a very good collaboration because they needed creative designers, but they were already very good audio and production designers and had the marketing and all that stuff, all the things that I was horrible at. So it was a very nice collaboration. And so at first they said, we'd like to take, there was a product I had been working on called the LinnDrum MIDI Studio. It was never released. My company went out of business before it did. But it was basically similar to the Linn 9000, but it introduced a pad format of 4x4 pads. And it was kind of interesting. It was a rack mount device, but you'd pull the panel off, and then you could have a long cord and just sit with your legs up on a table or something like that and play it with the illusion that all the electronics was inside, but it was just a control panel. Anyway, so they said, we'd like to take a lot of your engineering from that. And I said, well, that sounds fine, but I think probably there's a few other things I do right now. And I think I would say in summary, one of the things that perhaps helped the MPC's success, there's so many different things, but one of them is I made the assumption that all the people who would buy it are as impatient as I am and don't want to read manuals. And they just want to, if they have a musical idea, they want to get it down on tape or or in memory right now, and they don't want to be faced with all kinds of technical hurdles. And so I've always been a big advocate for great ease of use. And in fact, on the MPCs, I even put a help button on that I thought was very helpful. And because I remember all those times when I had wanted to record something as an amateur musician, and I found myself 2 hours later reading manuals. And so the MPC, what I tried to do was set it up so that when you take it out of the box and put in a floppy disk, but turn the power on, it loads everything up automatically. You can immediately just press play and you hear beats. Or if you want to record a beat, you just select an MP sequence, and all the settings for the quantization, the swing, all that stuff were just set the way most people want them. You didn't have to set it up first, anything. It would just work. And so that's been a big driving force. But a lot of it was timing, too. The whole new musical genre of hip-hop was just emerging at that point, and it happened to be a very good fit. And boy, in my life, I've had a whole lot of lucky coincidences of timing, which helped a whole lot, so...
It's obviously with the whole, like...
That's not luck, that's destiny.
You know, with the New Jack Swing, the whole Teddy Riley period as well, of him really turning up the quantize and the swing on that. And for me, all of these genres would never have happened if it wasn't for your design, you know.
Jay Dillon was marvelous. He used swing and quantization and lack of quantization in ways that I never would have imagined. You know, when I first would hear Dillon recordings, I'd think, it sounds like a bad drummer. Then people were playing with the exact style of bad drumming. But it was actually just a new style. And I listen to it now, I think that's a great groove. But, you know, it's an interesting concept. As a product designer who doesn't have the talent of these gentlemen, I like to use an expression, I can make the brush, but it's the artist who decides what to paint with it. And Dilla surprised me. Sampling loops surprised me. When I first made the MPC 60, I remember being at a NAMM show, and the MPC 60 had a whopping 26 seconds of sampling time. Mono.
26?
Yeah. And somebody said to me, could I have more sampling time? I said, how much? He said, 2 or 3 minutes. I said, what would you use that for? Because I assumed they just wanted to make drum sounds. They said, well, I'd like to take an entire measure or 2 measures of a record and use that as a basis for a song. Why would you want to do that? But, you know, it's just, you have no idea. Styles change, and that's what the artist does in our culture. The artist just makes a vector and knows what should be done and makes that vector, and everybody follows him. And I can try my best to predict it, but and sometimes I have lucky coincidences, but it always surprises me.
Amazing. So, Jermaine, when did you discover the MPC, and what was your first one?
I think it was like 1991. I think it was like I said, I went through this era where I had a Ensoniq EPS, and the Ensoniq I think went out of business, and I had to get a W30, and I was just working with these workstations, and I kept trying to find the best workstation, and the guy at Rhythm City, a Guitar Center. He called me and told me that I should try this MP out, and I went, and it was like, you know, this will do everything that the EPS will do, and it'll do everything that the W30 can do. But you like you said, the sample time wasn't that long, so I think I made Crisscross album using the W30 and the MP together, and then I started learning how to trick the MP by speeding the samples up and sampling it and getting the entire sample in there in a quicker time, and then slowing it down to make it. But that's just a lot of work. But you know, that's the things that was going through. But yeah, I think it was like 91 right there.
Justin, what about you? What was the first MPC that you purchased?
My first MPC? All of them. No, so the first one that I bought was a 62, which according to legend of who I bought it from was actually used to sequence a bunch of Slick Rick's second album. But that provenance didn't come back. I didn't get word of that until after I had already sold it. And I was like, ah. But yeah, so it was the 62. Then I saved up enough money to get a 3000. And then I just literally bought every one after that. But it's just one of those things where it's like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I feel like I cut my teeth learning on the Roland JS30, which was a scam. That's a whole other conversation. And the Lexicon Jam Man, which was also a scam. No coincidence that scam rhymes with Jam Man. And then after that, it was MPCs from there on out. And even after Roger had parted ways, and was doing other things, the children of that original design. And to this day, like, I'm mostly sequenced on Logic now, right? Just being real. But I still keep my Logic templates set up as if I was using an MP. Old habits die hard.
I would say that Teddy Riley era too, right? The syncopation on the MP, and the quantize that you talk about, that also was a reason why they was pushing me towards that. Because Teddy was my idol, so I was making a lot of beats I was trying to make these New Jack Swing beats, and Teddy beats was so, the sync was so perfect, right? It was like almost over perfect. And I remember the W30, it didn't even have that. It didn't have nothing in it that would do that. But I couldn't get it to do anything like that. So the first MP, basically, that swing was in there, and that was what we was chasing, definitely.
Yeah, no, completely. So, Jimmy, from moving from like the Linn period, when did you introduce the MPC into your production? Because we were chatting about this last night.
Yeah. So for me, the MPC, we had the 60, we had the 62, like you're talking about. The 3000, though, was the one, I think, for us that really got me hooked into it. And for me, I had to learn how to do it in a different way. I had to think about it differently. But luckily, we had some drum programmer guys that helped us out a lot. We had a guy named Alex Richburg out of New York who knew how to really work it well. And then we had these young brothers, the Avila brothers. That's right. And the Avila brothers. Okay, we got some testimony for the Avila brothers.
We got some Avila brothers fans.
So the Avila brothers also, Izzy in particular, he just was like the wizard on that machine. So what happened was, I remember this one day, I would always just use it just as a drum machine. I didn't use it as a sampler to loop in it or to even record instruments into. And I remember one day they set it up for me, and it was like a weekend, and they just said, you're going to make a song today, and you're going to have to use just the machine to record. Don't put it onto analog tape or whatever. Just use the machine. And so I said, okay, so in order to do something really simple, I just put these chords in. I went boom, 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 right? Then I put a little bass part, ba-boom, 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 boom, right? And then I put the beat. And the beat was just supposed to be ba-boom, boom, right? I couldn't figure out how to make it swing. So it just was this kind of straight beat, and I was so pissed off. So the next day I came in, and they said, did you make a beat? And I said, yeah, but I can't make it swing. And they were like, oh. And there it was. And that song turned into Got Till It's Gone for Janet. And that was my first experience of actually recording like that and actually using the machine the way it was intended to be used. So thanks to the Avila brothers, thanks to Alex Richburg, and thanks to you, we had a hit that combined Joni Mitchell, Q-Tip, and Janet Jackson all on the same record.
A round of applause for that. Amazing. Jermaine, what's your most memorable song that you made on an MPC for you?
Jump. Jump is the first record I made on the MP. It was so many samples everywhere in that song. I got samples going everywhere, and it's just like I think I was just so happy that I had found a machine that I could just like do whatever. But I also was, I don't even know why I chopped the sample because nobody told me to do that. But I was just like I said, I was just in sample heaven in this machine, and that song basically, I made the entire song inside the MP. It's nothing else going on. Like all the sounds is coming out of that one machine, and I could just sit there and write because it was like when you write songs. the way I write songs, I had to write the entire song. So if I'm writing the entire song, I put it in song mode, and then in different parts of the verses, the beats is changing and all of this type of stuff. And I was just amazed that the machine would actually allow me to do this. Like, I could just sit there and do this, and I wouldn't even have to have an engineer. Because I was actually too young. I was telling Brian this all the time. I was too young to actually even know engineers. So I had to like be in my room and just learn this shit. Like, you got to figure this out. Like, you can't go nowhere. I ain't had no car. I was too young to drive. All of this type of stuff. So I'm just learning how to work this machine inside there. And that one song, that jump, that song that basically was like me saying, this machine can't break. By the way, that's what it was like. The Sonic was broke. I was just praying to God that this machine was just be here forever. And then the 3000 came. And Jimmy, like you just said, I know I'm probably jumping around, but I got to find out what's inside that 3000. It's something in there, I swear to you. It's different than every machine. I've used them all. And nothing, when the beat comes out of that 3000, it hits them speakers in a different way.
I always bless each one.
Okay, all right, well, come over to my house and let's do this again then. Because that, I swear, I don't know, there's something in there. It's something.
I have to compliment the Akai company because they did do very good audio engineering on it, and a gentleman named David Cockrell designed the chip for that, and the tuning on it was very good sounding for the time. But a lot of it was what I said earlier. I think that had it not been used by such great artists like you guys, I don't think people would think it sounds as good as it does, because we're associating with the quality of the music that was produced with it. And the same thing with Prince. It's like, as I say, Prince was my marketing department in my first company. I didn't need to do any advertising. That just doesn't do a Prince record. And he used it so creatively. Sometimes I like to say, we make the music that the machines or the instruments want us to make. If we were all making music in a previous century, or even a century before that, we'd be making music with violins and clarinets and things like that. But the machines now, they excel at certain things, and they allow us to go down paths that are very creative, but they are the paths that the machines kind of want us to make. Drum machines want us to make beats, obviously, and fortunately, that happens to be a great thing, because the nature of popular music is it's all about the dance, it's all about the rhythm, and that's the thing that, even though I'm woefully unaware of contemporary music, I'm 69. What is the eternal part of that is in popular music is the beat, because it's basically sort of the bird song of the human species for mating. We all get together and dance, and what do we dance to? A metronome. Well, we have some very good metronome makers on this stage tonight.
Wow.
Wait.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Jermaine.
I mean that in a good way.
No. I wanted to point something out to people. So, for those of you that most of y'all are much younger than me, but I used to be in a group called The Time. Morris Day and The Time, right? So, do y'all remember the song 777-9311? So you know that drum beat in that song is a LinnDrum, okay? There's a drummer named David Garibaldi. He's a drummer in Tower Power. He programmed that beat. And that was Morris's favorite drummer, David Garibaldi. Okay, this is a LinnDrum, y'all. I know we say Jelly Bean on the song, but it's a LinnDrum. Okay, so just this gentleman right here, I just want to call that out.
Okay, so I got one other question. I know you've heard like this. So I was too young to have an 808 when you was using the 808, Jimmy.
Yes.
So
yes.
But they said that in the 808, Roger, they said that the 808 had this roll because that's how the lights or something, right? The lights would go, and when it would get to the end, it would roll around, and that's why the 808 would hit so hard, right? And I was wondering if that is a true statement, because I'm thinking that's what you put inside this 3000.
There's lights inside of there that we don't see, right?
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out like something. Is that a true statement about the 808?
I'm not quite sure what you mean by roll. Do you mean the button where you like note repeat?
Well, I think because it's the lights on the 808 they go all the way they move all the way down, right? I didn't get a
sequencing,
chance to
right.
use it like that, but they move all the way down, and then it shows the actual loop of the beat, right?
Oh, I see, because the lights go sequentially.
Yeah. But and they say when it gets to the end, it turns around, and that's what gives it the thrust of the 808.
I don't think so. I mean, it's just, it's kind of like if you had 16 more little lights right after it. It's just more lights.
All right.
They didn't want to make it too wide. You know, that's the thing I was saying earlier about my experience in taking my original drum machine prototype to Stevie Wonder. I think Roland did a great job by enabling people who didn't have a good enough sense of timing to tap things out or play pads because it allowed them to play mathematically, you know. But my experience once again is I was trying to make musical instruments for musicians who could already play. And if they could already tap it in, then why not just let them tap it into a metronome, you know? But at the same time, once again, Roland did a great job. And I have to commend Roland and Kakahashi, the founder, that they pursued their own path even after I came out with sampling machines. They didn't immediately try to copy it. They added creativity to analog sounds and their step-time programming system. And that's very much valued. There's a lot of great records that have been created with that as well. So they both have value.
Raj, you seem to be, you understand, you accept your accolades, but you're not very precious with your achievements. You've allowed companies to just take the design and do what you want to do with it. Like I have friends who have contacted you. You're like, yeah, just change the name. And you're just happy to march to the beat of your own drum, and I admire that. I respect that because some lesser cultured folks might try to just handle that differently, to say the least. What are you looking forward to doing next? Because the thing that I keep, the consistent thing that I always see with you is, what are we doing after that? What do you want to do after all of this? You've done everything. Literally.
Well, yeah, I've done some stuff. I don't know if I've done everything.
You've done enough.
Well, what I'm doing now with my company is I make an instrument that I call a LinnDrum. I managed to stick my name into every product name I have. By the way, I was thinking about once make a modulation processor and calling it Maudlin. What do you think? Okay. No, I made this instrument called LinnDrum, and I've been making it for about 10 years now. I've sold around 5,000 of them. And what they do is they bring the expressiveness of acoustic instruments to electronic sound. So, for example, you can play this keyboard and it looks like it's like 200 small drum pads that are small drum pads that are finger-sized. But if you wiggle your finger, you get a vibrato, and if you slide to another note, you get a pitch bend like on a guitar, and you can have polyphonic pressure, polyphonic pitch bends, and even if you tilt your finger forward and backward, you can change the timbre of the sound. And to me, I think this is something that I miss in an old-fashioned way from some of the acoustic instrument players of my youth. But at the same time, I feel like it's kept electronic music instruments from being in the foreground of music. The singers are in the foreground, but generally synthesis and other electronic music stuff is more of the background, the support for the singer. And when I was growing up, I used to love guitar players like Eric Clapton or Jimi Hendrix or Stefan Grappaldi, the violinist, or Django Reinhardt, people who played with such wonderful emotion that people were transfixed. They would sit there and watch this person who had an extraordinary skill that was a foreground. It was a voice, just like the human voice is. So that's what I'm focusing on right now, is to bring that to electronic sound, the ability to use subtle finger gestures to create something very, very compelling. It's so interesting because one of the things I really appreciate about the MPC community is that they value human feel. And they weren't always just playing straight 16th notes. They would use the swing settings very carefully and very subtly and use dynamics in the pads very well and very effectively and create some incredible beats for songs. And in the same way that the MPC community has valued our humanity in this way, that's what I'm trying to do with this LinnDrum thing that I'm making, is to give people a better human interface, a man-machine interface to the sound, so that it captures more of that emotion. And so that's what I'm thinking of these days, and that's what I'm spending most of my time doing, actually. If you want to learn more, go to rogerlinndesign.com.
No, we've spent quite a lot of time together recently, Roger, haven't we? And we've had a lot of discussions about just all of the great things that you've done in the past. But you had the experience to check out, the new MPC. You checked out the Live 2, the new MPC 3. How do you feel when you've seen your creation evolve over 35 years, and you see this community that's here today? I pleasure of dedicating my life to this community, and to have all of these friends up on the stage here. How does that make you feel as a creator?
It's absolutely wonderful. When I was here earlier, it was people were lining up and wanted to take pictures, and that sort of thank you after thank you is such a wonderful feeling to have, and to have that much appreciation. And I made this, as you know, I made back in, I think it was March, a video because you kindly sent me an MPC Live 2, and I was very surprised about how good it was because I hadn't kept up with the MPCs. And the comments from the MPC community were just, they made me tear up. It was wonderful. They were so kind. There was so much kindness in this group. At any rate, if you haven't seen the video, I got in touch with Akai because I hadn't really been familiar with the MPCs. And a lot of times some of my customers will say, what do you think of the new MPCs? And I would say, I don't know. I'm off doing something else now, the instrument. And so through some circumstances, I got back in touch with Akai, and you guys kindly sent me the Live 2, and I started playing with it, and it was just marvelous. This was so much better than what I created in 1988 in a variety of ways, but it still honored the original interface and did both. And it has this wonderful touchscreen, and it's got these speakers and this battery built in, so you just never have to plug the thing in. It's really nice. But I was also really taken with the technology. What Akai has done is so interesting. This is going to get kind of nerdy, but at some point they moved their internal computer to the one based on ARM. It's the same thing Apple did when they went to the M series processors. They also moved to a Linux operating system. This is the same thing, or very similar to what Apple did back in the OS X, when they went to base their operating system on the Unix operating system. And this gives it so much more power, and it's like that allows you to just take off, and because it's a mature operating system and a mature hardware platform, and it gives it so much potential for power, and that I was really impressed. I would have loaded down that MPC Live 2 with a lot of tracks and a lot of plugins going on, all this stuff, and it wouldn't even break a sweat. And it was just marvelous because I would have killed for this in 1988. And so it was, I gotta say, it's just, I take it as a very kind compliment that Akai has taken something that I made that was very elementary and moved it up to such a special place.
Thing is, your workflow is the blueprint of everything. And as we migrated over to MPC3, it was really important for us to keep moving forward, but also maintain the magic of the workflow. Because, we live in a period now where, I'm just going to put this down, I'm not going to follow this anymore. We live in a period where we have some of the most amazing tools at our fingertips. And, some people love analog, some people love plugins, all these things. And some of us come from a period where we didn't have those tools. Now, if those tools were around when we first started making music, we all would have used them 100%, And for us to make sure that we migrate the MPC2 to MPC3, anyone who's used even a 60 to a 2000 can simply work them instantly. It's like Jermaine, you're all over the new hardware, the new MPC3, but it allows producers to grow because sounds change, the way people mix records, they want dynamics in the box, they want everything now because we're so used to having all of these tools. So we've invested so much time listening to the community to making sure we're always staying relevant in the market with MPC, and that's all because of you, and we thank you for that.
Well, listen, can I attest to that quickly? like I said earlier, you know, the majority of my work is in the box now in the computer, right? But every once in a while I get bored, and I'll walk into a Guitar Center, and I'll just play. Oh, give me this, and this. And the last time I did that, I think I bought a MPC X and the Live 2. Got home and I was like, all right, this X is too big. Get it out of here. Because I wanted something that I could just sit on the couch and just hang out, right, with the family and just, you know, bang out and have fun. Took me about 5 minutes to translate a few things, but I was still able to just have fun making beats on the couch, right? Because I understood his original design. And you guys have not strayed from that. Which then led to my son coming over and being like, Daddy, hold on. Boom, 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 boom. Next thing I know, we're making beats together, right? But it was interesting because I'm like, wait a minute, I haven't used the MPC for a while now. And it's as many new features are here and all this other stuff that I can do, it's still the same, yet different and enhanced. And I don't know, time stretch, all right, that makes sense. Because you're still following the original blueprint, right? Like, so I can warp this, I can time stretch that, all right, cool. But it was not hard to understand at all. Like I never read an original manual for the 60 or the 3000. You just sat down and understood it. So thank you again.
Welcome.
Thank you.
No, it is truly amazing. But what I want to do, I'm just going to throw a couple of questions out to the audience just before we wrap up. You know, it's been an honor to have all of you here. It really is. And to talk about, you know, the original designs, moving into the MPC 60s, and then onto the newer generation of what we're doing. And we really honor you, Roger. You know, we are dedicated to the MPC community, as you see. Today is a celebration for bringing all of the creativity and seeing how so many different generations use our products to make music on the stage, you know, and that leads us into our partnership with Native Instruments. For us, bringing our workflow and having the best sound design company in the world to be a part of what we do is a real blessing, because it means that we can take everything we do even further to give you guys the best creative experience possible. So I want to thank everyone for that. And has anyone got any questions? Quite a few hands. Right, we're going to go.
Hello, my name is Ramin Bezat. I'm coming from Germany just to see you tonight. And I'm so happy to be here. And I got one question. Imagine you meet one person that has never heard about R&B. What record would you use to introduce him, R&B?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. If I had to answer that question, the one song that epitomizes modern R&B music, from my perspective, is produced by one of the guys who produces on the stage. The song called "Tell Me If You Still Care" by the SOS Band. Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis.
Wow. Okay.
If I had to like give you one song, like, yo, it's 808, it's chord progressions, it's bridge, it's long as shit. The song's like 6 minutes long. You know what I mean? You're gonna get every ounce of what R&B music, modern R&B music is supposed to sound like. That song.
Yo, it's funny you say that, because I had a different answer, then I thought about it for a second. I promise you, this is before you said it. Just Be Good to Me. The intro has an intro.
Yeah. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Dun, 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 dun. And then you get to so that's another one. And the amount of synth work, but that was based on, and the drum machine work that was based and built on previous generations and previous eras. You can hear the influences. Here we go. Okay, Battle Cat.
Everything about this
You know
song
what?
is
And you
crazy.
might be right with this one because even the drum pattern.
The drum pattern.
Boom, boom, cat, boom, cat.
And I'm going to give you a bonus too, right? I'm going to give you a bonus, right? Another Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis thing. Everybody talks about Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation album, right? Genius, classic, right? But I'm going to tell you, before you go put your ears on that album, on some true black shit, go listen to Alexander O'Neal's Heresy album. I called him, I was like, yo, this album for me is the prelude, to me, they created the concept album, the 80s, like actual album that was like, the album from it was like a party, it was like all the interludes in between, and you feel like you knew, all these characters. It was Jelly Bean, Popeye, Jerome, it was all these people on this album that you knew these names just because they were on these interludes, and I feel like that album is the prelude to, and if I'm correct, that album did happen after Control, right? Was it after Control?
Oh, wow.
I think it was 88, 89, 88, 87?
87, I think.
87. So it was after Control was 86.
Yeah, it was after. Yeah,
So
I think
so it feels like they were like, okay, everything that we didn't do on Control, we're going to do on this album to test what we're going to do on Janet's next album. Go listen to that album if you love Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation. Go listen to Alexander O'Neal here. Excuse my French. It's some nigga shit. But go listen to it.
I just want to say one thing about the SOS, both those SOS band records, is that they were recorded in Atlanta. And there was a gentleman on this stage now that was actually at those sessions as a little boy, Jermaine Dupri. He was at those very first SOS band sessions that we did. So
I don't know why I was there. Don't even I wasn't. No, I was there because my father was like a roadie. He was doing a lot of music, a lot of work for different people in the city, and SOS band was managed by the person that my father used to work for, and this night it's a lot of things happened this night. They got fired from the group, right? Because they was in Atlanta producing and they wasn't supposed to be down there doing it. And then it snowed in Atlanta. Like all this crazy shit happened in one day. And I happened to be in the studio as a kid. And I feel like, some of that must have got in my body. I was in there and it soaked it up. But yeah, I was there. I happened to be able to be in that space when they was making them SOS band records.
Yeah, I appreciate being able to share that. I'll just tell you, I don't know whether it's the R&B prototype or anything like that. I will say my favorite song of all time, or my favorite album of all time, because it's the body of work, and it inspired Rhythm Nation and albums like that, is Marvin Gaye, What's Going On. That album from start to finish to me is an R&B masterpiece.
Amazing. So we're going to have to wrap it up now. It's 6 o'clock. This has been an honor for everyone in the room. Yeah. Justin, Jimmy, Roger, Brian, Jermaine. This is history on the stage here. Like, we have grown up with all of your records.
Thank you, Andy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andy.
Yo, before I was saying I didn't want to save this, but did y'all hear the flex that he said? He said he didn't even do promotion on the drum machine because Prince was the promotion. That's a drop the mic.
For Roger
Drop
Linn,
the mic. Yo.
please.
Drop the mic.
Roger Linn, the GOAT.
And big thanks to Battle Cat for hosting the DJing for us. And thanks, everyone. We're going to be doing this next year.